I first met Phil in the summer of 2004 at a place called Fry's Electronics. It's this huge electronics superstore right near the Burbank airport, and it's crazy. It has this big spaceship crashing in to the front doors. I was returning a faulty DVD player and waiting in line, and it's my turn to see the cashier to try and get me a refund or an exchange. And some ways down the line, I noticed there was this sort of massive crazy hair. Every now and again it would bob round in the line and sort of look at me. I didn't think too much of it at the time. I was just sort of looking and so I finished my business and made my way back down the line towards the exit, and all of a sudden this chap stands out in front of me and stops me, and he goes, "Hey, you probably recognise me, don't you?" I looked at him and I laughed, and I was like, "Yeah, I do." He goes, "You look like a musician." And with that I said, "Yeah, I came here with my band, Airbus, a couple of years ago, and I met my wife and we ended up settling in LA. And in turn he told me about his time with Motorhead and coming out here, and after that was all done, he decided to stay on in LA. So we exchanged a few niceties, and then all of a sudden he says, "What are you doing Monday?" And I said, "Well, I'm starting a band." And he said, "All right, then I'll see you then." I was like, "Okay." So sure enough, Monday rolls around. All of a sudden, Philthy's standing on my doorstep with a 6-pack of Fat Tire Ale, ready to rock. Yeah, Phil lived not even 5 minutes away from my house, just up over the way in Los Feliz. And so he'd come here, and then sometimes I'd go to his place and we'd work on a few things. I had this small blue Royce drum set, and Phil comes in on the first time he comes round, and he sits down and he plays it for a minute, and then he says, "Anyone worth any salt wouldn't play a drum kit like this." And I was like, "Okay, well, you bring yours then." So to my horror, he brings a V drum set, which is the digital sort of pads, and I was like, "No, I disagree." And so we butted heads about that a few times. Yeah, he was extra helpful. He was always bringing bits and pieces. He'd have string lights. He'd go, "Hey, do you want these for your studio?" And he had this strip of lights, and be all around the kit. He loved all that stuff. He was always helping with things like that. I remember I was doing a different project called Jinx Remover, and we were setting up for an album release. And he said, "Do you want a hand?" And he came and he helped us load in and all that stuff. He gave some of the guys a ride to the venue, and he brought a big box of lights that we could use. And yeah, he was pretty good like that. Even one day I was in my backyard, and I was sort of mowing the lawn, and I could just feel that there was someone else around. And I was like, I turned the mower off, and I walked around the corner, and behind my gate I could see Phil. I was like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I got you a battery for your Porsche." So I had this crazy Porsche. We had these, well, he had a really nice 70s Stingray at the time, and so you knew when he came round. But he brought around this big old battery. He goes, "It's great, I charged it." "Oh, where'd you get it from?" He goes, "Well, I found it round the back of our place." I was like, "Okay." That was the sort of thing he did. he was pretty good like that. Yeah. So Phil and I spent the next couple of years jamming casually in between our schedules, whatever we were doing. I was on tour a lot with a group called Vic Dumonte's Persona Non Grata in England, in Bristol. And that's when I met Owen. He'd come over with a group of his friends from Swansea. Pretty impressed. I invited him backstage, had a beer, and we chatted about music. And then I went back there, and I believe his band Buffalo Kings and us played together in Swansea. And that's when I saw him shred, and I thought, hey up, this guy's got a future. Owen arrived at the end of 2006. He'd asked me to help him find a car. So a mechanic mate of mine found him a white convertible Mustang. It was a 1990. And so he got himself a surfboard as well, and he was driving around California in that, living the dream, And I'd asked him to come and, jam with Philthy and I. And he was like, what, really? And I was like, yeah, come on, let's go. And with that, the Little Villains lineup was complete. At the beginning of 2007, we'd decided that we should try and go in the studio, like a real studio. So I have this really good friend, Robbie Waldman, who allocated some time for us over at his place.
So I've known James for a long time, and he calls me up, and I met him on the road, and he's like, yeah, Philthy Phil of Motorhead and I become friends, and we want to make a record. And I'm like, fucking A, that sounds amazing. Are you serious?
And we had a few rehearsals and figured out how we were going to get up there. I think I went over to Philthy's lockup with him in Burbank, and we dug his old kit out, which he hadn't seen for a couple of years, I think. I remember when we set it up at the studio, we were all like taking pictures of it. Even he was. Yeah, that was funny.
And it was funny, so I for many years I owned a recording studio in the desert in Palm Springs, and a lot of cool records have been made there, but I was going through a transition. I just sold a console, I was getting another console, but the room sounded good, so I said, James, listen, I would love for you guys to come down. I just have a little Mackie desk right now, or I maybe even have that just for listening back. And he's like, I'll bring it all. I'm like, what do you mean bring it all? I was like, is your tape machine working? I'm like, yeah. There's actually one just like this, Atari MX-80, and he's like, I'm like, dude, the studio's yours.
I went up there first. I had a hell of a load of gear to take with me, plus Philthy's drums, which we'd gotten from his lockup the day before. And I basically had to sort of figure out all this wiring. But we pressed ahead, and I figured it out. My days with Airbus had helped me with that, because I learned how to wire up analog equipment and work that. So
James came with an SUV filled with shit, and I helped him get it out, and cables everywhere, and it was amazing. Then Philthy came, and it was great. He had this gorgeous DW kit, and he's telling me about back when DW made really, really custom drums, like at the beginning of the company, and how he even picked out the wood itself before it was made into a drum kit, and he took an exorbitantly long time to set his kit up. And at the time, like the records I had made with people, I was always like, let's set up as quickly as we can, and then we can get down and record. And so I was initially of that mindset, with because I wanted to make him happy, to make everybody happy. And And he slowed that way down, and but it was cool because I got a chance to get to know him a little bit. And he was a feisty dude, and anyway, once the drum kit was set up, which took like I said, a really long time, in the best of ways, he actually started hitting on it a little bit, and
he was playing it, and he was like, and every time he played it, it would kind of want to scoot across the room. So he was like, "Hang on, guys, I'll be back in a while." So he motors off in his Stingray, comes back from Home Depot, I think, with all these cables, like chains, and he tied it around the front of the kit, over the stands, around the back of his stool, and then he was like, "Right, I'm ready." And then of course he was able to all stay in one piece, you know, and play without it all falling apart. Yeah, I think we even capture it on one of the songs where, you know, his kick drums run away from him, and it's annoyed him because he's doing this classic beat of his. Yeah.
But that was the start for me to kind of get a chance to know Owen better, and that was really cool too. And he was excited to be in the desert, and he was here for an extensive period of time, and he and James had become very good friends, and it really felt like a time of growth and meeting really cool musicians, you know, at all different levels. But you know, Phil was just a really, really good dude, and feisty, but what a musician, hell of a drummer, and it was really just one of those moments that I remember that, you know, of all the, you know, for the 15 years I had a studio, that's one of the highlights of my time there.
We talked about getting some management for the band, but he was not sure about his travel arrangements. He hadn't had a passport for years, and so he had to go through all that process. And so in the meanwhile, I sort of got on with the projects I was working on anyway. You know, Little Villains kind of survived in the studio, as to say. We just recorded and had a lot of fun together, and it was kind of good downtime, you know. Anyway, we laid down the tracks, and then I took the material back with me to my studio to work on it. On the Philthy Lies album, I left in all the banter between us, because it just shows you that it was of a time, it was real, and he liked to, you know, he liked to tell jokes, or he was always sort of very vocal. So I'm glad I captured it. Now I can share it with everyone, I guess. I've been touring with this Australian company around the world for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden I read that Philthy had died. And I didn't know what to think. I was just a little dazed by that. Because I hadn't seen him, I hadn't spoken to him for 3 years, I think. And I'd tried, you know, we tried, but you know, I think he was a lot worse off than he was saying, you know. So I didn't really know what to do about that. I was sad. I had a look at some of the things he left behind for me. Now, it wasn't until a lot later, like in 2017, but I couldn't find the sessions for the album we'd made, but I found the reels. And so, you know, I'd acquired a tape machine, and so I played the reels, and I was like, oh boy, they sound good. And yeah, so I had a little listen to it, and I was like, oh, it's a shame that people aren't going to hear this, and they think that, you know, he just went out like that without any, you know, any sort of real work that he'd done. His last work was, I know he'd done other projects, but I just thought it was a shame that people weren't going to hear this, you know. So after Phil had died, I spoke to his family, and and eventually we met, and I played him a couple of songs, and you know, he seemed to like it, and I didn't know what to think about it. You know, is this good? Is it cool? And I spoke to Owen about it, and he was the same. He was like, is this cool or is this bad? You know, but really, it's, you know, it's just some music that we all made together, and why not? And so his family had given me the blessing. They said that I didn't need it, but you know, I wasn't going to do anything without, you know, at least talking about it. And so yeah, so I set about working on mixing up the album and fixing anything that was, you know, because it was old, and I had to get it off of the tapes and make sure I could capture it all properly. And yeah, that's how Philthy Lies. He really shines on the record, and I'm pretty proud of it. I think it's a really good record. I think he would have liked it too. Wow, those drums sound great, don't they, already? Got a room mic here. Yours truly. Wah solo. I mean, listen to that kick and snare, he's really going for it. There's a lot of rolls. Can't really go wrong, can we? I mean, that's it.